And what fragment that we have of our healthcare system is under continuous assault, Medicare and Medicaid. And now we're the only country in the developed world that's saying, oh, and by the way, you want to get a COVID shot to protect yourself and your family and grandma and the little kids? It's going to cost you. Bob Kennedy, runs around talking about the evil vaccine companies. Well, he's going to make them a whole pile of money here. RFK Jr.'s deadly war on science. Bob Kennedy is not a doctor. He is not a scientist. He's a lawyer. But he's making medical choices for all of us. This is crazy. The COVID-19 vaccine, for example. Keep in mind, the pandemic is not over. I mean, yes, it seems like it's over, but the reality is, in the United States, every week, COVID-19 still kills 300 people and hundreds more are hospitalized. COVID is the 4th leading cause of death in the United States, and in the top 10 leading causes of death among children. And this new strain is surging out of Asia right now, which is highly contagious. So if you're over 65 and you haven't had a COVID shot in 6 months, get it now. And if you're under 65 and you haven't had a COVID shot in the last 12 months, get it now. So anyhow, there's this advisory committee on immunization practices to the CDC. That's the title of this committee, and they come up with recommendations on vaccines. And their recommendation has been what I just said. If you're over 65 or immunocompromised or whatever, get the COVID shot every 6 months. And if you're under 65, get it once a year, including if you're a kid. But Bob Kennedy came out and just blew that all up. And, without consulting, apparently, this committee that is supposed to come up with these things. According to Dr. Paul Offit, what Kennedy is claiming now is that these vaccines should go through placebo-controlled double-blind studies. Now, here's the problem. When you've got something that works, we know that the COVID vaccine has literally saved millions of lives, even though when Bob Kennedy was asked if the COVID vaccine has ever saved anybody's life, he refused to answer the question. During the Senate confirmation hearing, Bernie Sanders asked Kennedy to acknowledge that COVID vaccine had saved millions of lives. Kennedy replied, I don't think anybody can say that. So this is a guy who has, committed himself for quite some time now to trash talking vaccines. And like I said, COVID is still killing 300 Americans a week. But he is saying that they should be doing placebo-controlled studies. You don't do a placebo-controlled study. Let me back up a little bit. A placebo-controlled study is where half the people in the study get the drug, in this case the vaccine, and half the people in the study get a sugar pill or a saline injection. And nobody knows which half is which. And then everybody goes out and gets exposed to the disease. Well, you don't do that if there's a deadly disease out there. I mean, you do that real early on in the phases when you're looking for, safety and things like that or something close to that. But you just don't, it's unethical. Dr. Paul Offit, the director of Vaccine Education Center at the University of Pennsylvania, says, we have a vaccine that works. Given that we know that SARS-CoV-2 continues to circulate, cause hospitalizations and death, there's no group that has no risk. In other words, there's no group you can give the placebo to. But the other thing that's really important to note is that prior to Bob Kennedy making this announcement, if you went to the pharmacy and said, hey, I'd like my COVID shot, it was free. It was, for most people. Most insurance companies and Medicare would pay for it. Why? Because it was recommended by the CDC. Now, just like your flu shot. Now, if you go to the pharmacy and say, hey, I'd like that COVID shot, they're going to say, oh yeah, that'll be $150 or whatever they happen to charge for it. I've heard from, I've heard or seen, prices as low as $75, as high as $200. Seems like the average is in the neighborhood of $100. And so what does that mean? What that means is that low-income people, the people who are most likely to get sick and die from COVID because they're least likely to have the the health and nutrition specifically that keeps them healthy, are more likely to not get vaccinated and thus to get sick and die or suffer long COVID or other side effects, strokes, heart attacks, kidney damage. I mean, COVID is a disease of the blood vessels. It's a clotting and blood vessel disease, and it can cause all kinds of wild damage. So what we have now is not a public health system. It's a public death system. And no other developed country in the world is doing this. We are completely alone. We're the only country in the world with over $1 trillion in student debt. Every other advanced democracy in the world not only provides free college, but most of them, or many of them anyway, pay you to go to college because they know it's an investment in the future of the country. We're the only country in the world with over $1 trillion in medical debt. We're the only developed country in a democracy in the world that doesn't have a national health care system. And what fragment that we have of our health care system is under continuous assault, Medicare and Medicaid. And now we're the only country in the developed world that's saying, oh, and by the way, you want to get a COVID shot to protect yourself and your family and grandma and the little kids? It's going to cost you. Bob Kennedy, runs around talking about the evil vaccine companies. Well, he's going to make them a whole pile of money here.